Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadare Jaya Giri Varadare Yashodanandana Jaya Bhaja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Bhaja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Jaya Kunja Bihare Jaya Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Shri Radhe Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hariba, 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 Gaura Hariba. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Actually, I think I'll just read it from there. There's a space. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text number 5, and the chapter is entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. Sa'adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru Swadishnyamastaya Sishrikshayakshata Tam Nadya Gacha Drishamatra Samatam Prapancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhavet Sa'adidevo Jagatam Paro Guru Swadishnyamastaya Sishrikshayakshata Tam Nadya Gacha Drishamatra Samatam Prapancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhavet
Sadidevo Jagatam Paro Guru
Sadidevo Jagatam Paro Guru
Swadishnyamastaya Krashayekshata
Swadishnyamastaya Sishrikshayakshata
Tam Nadya Gacha Drishamatra Samatam
Drishamatra Samatam
Pancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhave
Prapancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhavet Sadidevo Jagatam Paro Guru Swadishnyamastaya Sishrikshayakshata Tam Nadya Gacha Drishamatra Samatam Prapancha Nirmana Vidhiryaya Bhavet Sadidevo Jagatam Paro Guru Thank you, ladies. Nirmana vidhirya bhavet. Sadidevo jagatam paro guru. Swadhishnamastaya srishvikshaya ikshata. Tam nadya gacha drishamatra sammatam. Prapancha nirmana vidhirya bhavet. Sadidevo jagatam paro guru. Swadhishnamastaya srishvikshaya ikshata. Tam nadya gacha dvishamatra samatam. Prapancha nirmana vidhirya bhavet. Thank you. Word for word translation. Saha, he, Adideva, the first demigod, Jagatam, of the universe, Pada, supreme, Guru, spiritual master, Swadishnyam, his lotus seat, Astaya, to find the source of it, Sisrikshaya, for the matter of creating the universal affairs, Aikshata, began to think, Tam, in that matter, Na, could not, Adyagachat, understand, Drisham, the direction, Atra, therein, Samatam, just the proper way, Prapancha, material, Nirmana, construction, Vidhi, process, Yaya, as much as, Bhavet, should be. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat, and while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Please repeat after me. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work. Nor could he find out the process for such creation. Thank you. Purport. This verse is the prelude for explaining the transcendental nature of the form and the abode of the Lord. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it has already been said that the Supreme Absolute Truth exists in his own abode without any touch of the deluding energy. Therefore, the kingdom of God is not a myth, but factually a different and transcendental sphere of planets known as the Vaikunthas. This will also be explained in this chapter. Such knowledge of the spiritual sky far above the material sky and its paraphernalia can be known only by dint of devotional service or bhakti yoga. The power of creation by Lord Brahma was also achieved by bhakti yoga. Brahmaji was bewildered in the matter of creation and he could not even trace out the source of his own existence. But all this knowledge was fully achieved by him through the medium of Bhakti Yoga. By Bhakti Yoga, one can know the Lord, and by knowing the Lord as the Supreme, one is able to know everything else. One who knows the Supreme knows everything else. That is the version of all the Vedas. Even the first spiritual master of the universe was enlightened by the grace of the Lord. So who else can attain perfect knowledge of everything without the mercy of the Lord? If anyone desires to seek perfect knowledge of everything, he must seek the mercy of the Lord, and there is no other means. To seek knowledge on the strength of one's personal attempt is a sheer waste of time. Read the verse one more time. Sa'adidevo jagatam paro guru swadishnyamastaya shishvikshayakshata tamnadya gacha drishamatra samatam prapancha nirmana vidhiraya bhavet. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat, and while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I pray for the blessings of all the devotees and their empowerment. Originally, Giriraj Maharaj was scheduled to give class today, but they say if you can't get a horse, then a donkey is also usable. So here we're hearing about Lord Brahma basically being bewildered. This verse is just talking about how Brahma doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where he's come from. He doesn't know what to do. And he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't know how to do it. He knows he's supposed to create, but he's just sitting on his lotus flower, and he's just surrounded by darkness, and he's totally bewildered. And he tries to climb down the lotus and down the lotus stem, but he can't see anything, so he comes back. So this is the beginning of the creation of the universe. So already there's bewilderment, already there's confusion right from the outset, and we see in this instance that Brahma is totally dependent upon Krishna. And we also see the fallacy of the empiric process here. So Brahma is thinking, what should I do? So he looks around, he walks around, he climbs down the lotus. It's like, what's it called? When you use your sense perception? Yeah, but in Sanskrit. Prachaksha, Prachaksha. So we see the fallacy of Prachaksha here. He's trying it out, he's looking around, he's trying to hear, he's trying to figure out what to do. No clue. And it's not until he gets some mercy from Krishna, which is going to be happening in this chapter, what this chapter is all about, that he can actually understand how to engage in the process, engage in his service. His service is to create the universe. It's interesting, it uses the words prapancha nirmana here, material construction. So you could say also Lord Brahma is the original construction worker, or the original site manager. So he's going to be overseeing the construction, how different things manifest, how it all works. The material construction is nothing spiritual. It's just putting things together, putting Lego blocks together. You had a few cranes, a few brickies, and then you have some planets and some people to live on these planets. So Brahma is bewildered, and we'll hear later in this chapter how Krishna manifests to him later. Although the first thing that happens is Lord Brahma That's actually in the next verse. When he's thinking, he hears these two syllables. What are the two syllables? Tapa. That's right. He just hears these two syllables, tapa, which means austerity, penance. So he thinks, okay, maybe he takes it as a sign from God. So he just stays sitting on his lotus and he performs penances for a long time, 1,000 years of the demigods. So that is a long time. And it doesn't say here exactly what those penances were. It doesn't elaborate, at least here, on what exactly he did, which is interesting. If you noticed in the purport that we were hearing, Prabhupada talks about bhakti yoga. That's how he says it all the time. He doesn't say chanting the holy name. He doesn't say nama sankirtan. That is the process for us. But he says bhakti yoga every time he talks about what Brahma did and what we have to do. He says bhakti yoga. So I don't know exactly what Brahma did. It was definitely bhakti yoga. It was devotional service. But whether he was chanting the holy name or not, I don't know. In different periods of time and different personalities, they engage in different processes. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he was performing his austerities, standing on one leg and then restricting his breathing. And we also hear about Vyasadeva in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranihatimale Apashat Purusham Purnam Maya Tadapashriyam. So Bhakti Yogena Manasi, Vyasadeva, he focused his mind by engaging it in the linking process of devotional service. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead and Maya, who was behind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One time, Abhimanyu Puru, who many of you probably know, who's always around fixing devotees' cars, he asked my spiritual master, but what was that bhakti yoga that Vyasadeva performed? He said, not like the bhakti yoga we do, is it? And my spiritual master said, yes, it's the same thing. And he said, but it's not like, taking prasadam and going on book distribution, or he's not even chanting japa. It's bhakti yoga and manasi, some kind of meditation or concentration on Krishna. And my spiritual master was making the point, no, it's the same thing. In essence, it's the same thing. It's bhakti yoga. He's connecting to Krishna, he's serving Krishna, he's meditating on Krishna, he's remembering Krishna. So this is the same thing that Brahma is doing, although the details may be different for us. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalau nasti eva nasti eva nasti eva gatiranyata. We can only achieve perfection through chanting the holy names of the Lord, chanting the holy names of the Lord, chanting the holy names of the Lord. There's no other way we can do it. In other ages, at different times, they may be doing something else, but the holy name is always there. But yeah, just interesting here how Prabhupada talks about it and how we don't hear so many details about what Brahma does. So for us, it's also a little bit difficult to understand Brahma's position. It's so far out, it's so far away, it's so distant that how can we even imagine there's a universe with nothing in it and there's just lotus flower coming out from, who is it? Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And it's just, how can we conceive of it? And for those of us who have been brought up in a kind of Western milieu environment with not much knowledge of Vedic culture, just the whole concept of demigods and stuff like that is also very distant. It's just kind of alien and far away. So for us to actually understand who Brahma is, how exalted Brahma is, and what his position is quite difficult. It's said that when we fall to this material world, if we do, then the first birth that one usually takes is as Lord Brahma. So it's a very exalted position. The body of Lord Brahma is made of intelligence. It's a subtle body. He's got special superpowers. Just like when he became attracted to Vak, his daughter, and he wanted to enjoy with her, he felt so ashamed after that he just gave up that body that he had, and then he took on another body. So it's difficult, very difficult to conceive. It's said also that if one performs one's duties perfectly in Varnashram for 100 lifetimes, one after another, one attains the position of Lord Brahma. So one can just imagine how exalted and how special that position is. But still we see that Brahma is fallible, and he's dependent upon the mercy of Krishna. So, very special personality, but still fallible and still dependent. As regards this chapter, who knows what is an important thing that happens in this chapter, 2nd canto, 9th chapter? Anything specifically important in this chapter? Any ideas? Yeah, Chatushloki. Who is that? Maharaj. Okay, yeah, good. Chatushloki, that's right. So we're coming up to that. It's just setting the scene. Brahma is here, bewildered. And then he hears tapa. And then he engages in the process. Whatever that process is, we don't exactly know the details, but it's Bhakti Yoga. He's performing his penances for 1,000 celestial years. And then, verse 9, the personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode of Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. So he showed Lord Brahma Vaikuntha, he showed him the spiritual world. He also saw Krishna, saw Narayan. And it said that, in here, it says that Lord Brahma Krishna shook Brahma's hands. I don't find the verse exactly right here. It says he was pleased with Lord Brahma and he shook his hand. When we were studying Bhagavatam in Hungary, our teacher was saying that he was disputing that, but suggesting that it might not be shaking your hand like two businessmen shake one another's hands. But there's, I think the word sparsha is there, like, I'm getting so old, I'm forgetting everything. What's the verse it says in the Bhagavad Gita? We were just doing it the other day, where sense enjoyment is the origin of all suffering. Yehi samsparsha bhoga, dukkha yonaya evate. So yehi samsparsha, so touching sense objects, coming in contact with them, enjoying those nice sense objects, putting that burfi in your mouth, whatever it may be, getting the stroke on your head from the temple commander, whatever it is, when you're touching the sense objects, that's the origin of all suffering. Dukkha yonaya evate. That's where all the suffering comes in the material world, when you've engaged in that sense gratification. And it's the same word that's used in that verse, sparsha, touching. So our teacher was saying it's probably just Krishna touching the hand of Lord Brahma, not shaking it like, yes, deal. So Brahma meets Narayan, and he sees the spiritual world, and then he speaks the Chatushloki to Lord Brahma, which is extremely important because this is the Bhagavatam in seed form, in just 4 verses. And these are verses that everybody should know, all the devotees. If we want to know Bhagavatam, then we should, if you don't want to learn 18,000 verses, then you can just learn 4, and that encapsulates the whole thing. Ahameva sameva gre, ahameva sameva gre, nyanyat sad, no, how's it go? Ahameva sameva gre, yada, just see. Yeah, ahameva sameva gre, nanyat sad yada sad param, paschadaham yadaitascha yo vashisheta sosmyaham. We won't get so into it now because it contains the whole of the Bhagavatam in it. But Krishna is explaining that he is everything. He is the origin of everything. There's nothing beyond him in the first verse. Then I especially like the second verse. Viteratam yat patiyeta na patiyeta chatmani tad vidyadat mano mayam yatabaso yatatamaha. And O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relationship to me, know it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So Brahma is saying, whatever you like, whatever you're interested in, whatever you're attracted to, if you see it in relationship to me, then that's fine. Then you're seeing it as my power, my opulence, my energy. But as soon as you see something, and this is really the demarcation line of Krishna consciousness or Maya, if you want to find out if you're Krishna conscious or if you're in Maya, then it's this. Do I see it in connection to Krishna? When I see something, am I just seeing it as it is, or am I seeing it usually in relationship to me? How I can exploit that or just be connected, enjoy, experience that thing, how it can benefit me, or am I seeing that that's Krishna's energy? That lady is Krishna's servant. This money is Krishna's money. How can I engage it? How can they be engaged? How can I serve them? How can I use this to serve Krishna? If that's our consciousness, then we're in Krishna consciousness according to Krishna here in the Chaturshloki. If we're absorbed in something, we have some absorption and it's about me, then that's Maya, unless you're thinking, how can I serve Krishna in that way? And then there's also other two verses of Chaturshloki, but extremely important. This is the Chaturshloki in this chapter, coming up, building up to that. And then when this has been spoken to Lord Brahma, then he is able to create. Then he is able to perform his service. It's just like book distribution, right? You go on book distribution and you can't do anything. You're standing on the street, you're saying the same things, you're the same person, you've chanted the same amount of rounds, and just nothing is happening. You can't stop, or you can stop people, and nobody will give you anything. It's just banging your head against a brick wall in a good way. And then and then 1 second it changes, and then for the next hour, people are just taking books, and it's ecstasy, and it's all flowing, and then again it stops. It's just like Krishna's just playing with us, you know. Krishna's just showing you, you're not doing it, I'm doing it. And it starts with Lord Brahma. It's not just the book distributors. Lord Brahma is sitting there thinking, what can I do? How do I do? I'm supposed to create the universe. Quite a big task. Quite a lot of pressure. I mean, there's nobody there to put pressure on him except for Krishna, but if he didn't create it, there would be quite a big lack. So he's thinking, I've got to create the universe, but I've got no idea where to start or what to use, who to talk to, you know, like how to get going. And it's only when Krishna has appeared after his penances and his austerities that he can do something. And then when he is empowered, then he passes on that Bhagavatam to Narada Muni, his son. So that Chaturshloki that Krishna spoke is the Bhagavatam. And Brahma passes on that Bhagavatam to Narada Muni. And then who does Narada Muni pass it on to? Vyasadeva. That's right, he passes it on to Vyasadeva. So we spoke about this in another class I gave. What is the Bhagavatam? What does it mean exactly? Is it this book that we have? But it's not that book, because I've got it on my phone here. So what is this Bhagavatam? Is it 18,000 verses, or is it 4 verses? Or, you know, is it when Maitreya speaks to Vidura, or is it when Anantashay speaks to the Kumaras? What is that Bhagavatam? And it's an interesting thing to explore and research. I mean, ultimately it's Krishna. The Bhagavatam is Krishna. It's a literary form of Krishna. And it appears in lots of different forms, just like the Mahabharata is 100,000 verses, but what is it on the heavenly planet? It's 1,000,000 verses. So, what is the Bhagavatam? What is the essence of Bhagavatam? So these 4 verses are the essence of Bhagavatam. But the 10th canto is the essence of Bhagavatam also. So I've heard it said that the 10th canto is half of the Bhagavatam, which I don't exactly understand, because it's 90 chapters. I think on average the chapters in each canto are roughly 30 verses. And there's one devotee also I know in Hungary, he could probably answer that. He knows exactly how many verses there are and what the topics are, but that's what I've heard from authorities, that the Bhagavatam is half of the 10th canto is half of the Bhagavatam. But anyway, Bhagavatam is spoken to Brahma in these 4 seed verses. He speaks it to Narada, Narada speaks it to Vyas. Vyas writes it down to us, and then we speak it to others, right? We're giving Bhagavatam class, then you're distributing it. It's like never-ending cycle of nectar. And that's this chapter, a little description of this chapter, I thought something that might also be relevant is to understand Lord Brahma, to understand Lord Brahma's position, and to understand his position, to understand his position in relationship to Krishna is the Brahma Vimohan Leela. So, this isn't the only time that Lord Brahma is bewildered, or the different demigods become bewildered. We also know the pastime of Govardhan Hill, where Indra tries to kill all the Brajbasis and all of their cows. Quite amazing, considering he's the king of heaven. But Brahma, similarly, he becomes bewildered. He hears about Krishna. There's this little special blue boy. And you think, well, this is, he hears about him a lot from the other demigods, that this personality is very special. And okay, I'll go and check it out. See who this overly intelligent young boy is. Which means Brahma's already in Maya, because that's Krishna. Which is interesting, because Brahma is the spiritual master of the universe, right? The Vedas emanate from his mouths. And he's the head of our sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. One time, a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, if Brahma is not pure, totally pure, then how can it be that he's the head of our sampradaya? And Prabhupada said, he's pure enough. It's pure enough to do that job, to perform that function. And I think this is something that we should also take into consideration with ourselves and with devotees around us, that we're not pure. We come from most fallen background, but if we're engaged in devotional service, and we're trying, to climb up the ladder, trying to crawl out of the gutter, trying to, shake off all the dirt and the grime that's internally and externally on us, then, we can't be too hard on one another. Srila Prabhupada would be like that also with the leaders in ISKCON. Sometimes they wouldn't be chanting their rounds, and devotees would complain to Prabhupada, he's not chanting his rounds. Prabhupada would say, yeah, but he's doing his job. So he wouldn't kick them out. He would, encourage them, engage them, help them. I'm sure he would also speak to them. It's not that anything goes, but if one is sincerely engaged, api chetsu duracharo bhajate mama nanya bhak, that if one is sincerely engaged in devotional service, he slips. That's natural. We have a baby, right? We have a little baby, 3 months old. She's not started to crawl yet, but when she starts crawling, starts walking, she's going to fall over all the time. It's just natural. That's what's going to happen. So we're all fallible. Even Brahma, the Supreme Personality within this universe, is fallible. And our Brahma is a good one, is a pretty good one. He's a pure devotee. They're not all pure devotees in different universes. Sometimes Krishna even takes the position of Lord Brahma, if there's nobody capable of taking up that position. But Brahma was bewildered, and he thought that, he didn't know who Krishna was. So he went and he tested Krishna. So what did he do? He stole the boys and the calves. Does anybody know what day that was? No, it wasn't Tuesday. Balaram's birthday, I don't think it was Balaram's birthday. It may or may not have been. What else happened on that day? Come on, Sangatampriya. What else happened on that day? You don't know? It might have been Tuesday, actually. Huh? He killed another demon on that day, Aghasura. So on that day, Aghasura was killed. And Brahma came and he stole the cows and the calves and took them away and manifested other... No, he just took them away, right? He just took them away. And he came back after a moment because he was also slightly concerned that he may be playing with fire here, that he may be getting in trouble. And he saw that they were still there. He saw the calves and the cows were still there, and the cowherd boys. And he couldn't understand that, how is this working? What chapter am I on? couldn't understand. Now, how is this? So it had been a moment for Lord Brahma, but 1 year for the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And Lord Brahma came back, and he saw this. I'll just read this. This is 10th Canto, 13th chapter, 57th verse. This is also where Prabhupada got up to the 14th chapter, I believe, when he was translating Bhagavatam. So he was still translating here, got up to the 14th chapter. It says, the Supreme Brahman is beyond mental speculation. He is self-manifest, existing in his own bliss, and he is beyond the material energy. He is known by the crest jewels of the Vedas by refutation of irrelevant knowledge. Thus, in relation to that Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, whose glory had been shown by the manifestation of the four-armed forms of Vishnu, Lord Brahma, the Lord of Saraswati, was mystified. What is this, he thought, and then he was not even able to see. Lord Krishna, understanding Brahma's position, then at once removed the curtain of his Yogamaya. So it says here in the Sanskrit, Muhyati Sati, being mystified, Brahma said, Kimidam, what is this? He doesn't understand. He comes back and he sees the cows and the cowherd boys, and he's like, what is this? He was thinking he's so intelligent by his mystic power, he's taking them away, he's putting them in a cage, they're sleeping, just for a few moments, and he comes back and he doesn't understand. How is it that they're here? And then Krishna shows him what it is, what these forms actually are. And there's an amazing description here in the Bhagavatam that the cowherd boys manifested as forms of Vishnu. It said all these personalities had 4 arms holding conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus flower in their hands. They had helmets on their heads, and they had all these different powers and energies manifesting from them. All these different potencies of Krishna. Every part of their bodies, from their feet up to the top of their heads, was fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulsi leaves offered by devotees, engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. So then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, the time factor, Swabhava, one's own nature by association, samskara, reformation, karma, desire, karma, fruitive activity, and the gunas, the 3 modes of nature, their own independence being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord, had all taken forms and were also worshipping those Vishnu Murtis. So Brahma just came totally bewildered that this is actually Krishna. He's a supreme personality, he's omnipotent, he's full of all potencies, and he's manifested this before me. And it said that Brahma almost died. He couldn't see anymore when that happened. He almost died. And he couldn't understand how is it that this personality has manifested this. And then he understood. He said, oh, this is the Supreme Lord. This is Krishna. And this is a very sweet verse. It says here, then Lord Brahma saw the absolute truth, who is one without a second, who possesses full knowledge and who is unlimited, assuming the role of a child in a family of cowherd men and standing all alone, just as before, with a morsel of food in his hand, searching everywhere for the calves and his cowherd friends. So then he saw there's all these powerful forms, time is worshipping them, these different energies. I can't even remember the names of those energies. Bhu, and I can't remember the names, and Nila, and these different energies of Krishna are worshipping him and manifesting from him. And then Krishna just shows him his form as Krishna. He's holding the food in his hand, probably his left hand, searching for the calves. Where are the calves? Where are the cowherd boys? And it's very sweet. He's manifesting that sweet form of Krishna. So he just shown Brahma his power, his supremacy, because he was not in that humble attitude. And then he goes back to this form of Krishna. And then Lord Brahma in the next chapter is just offering prayers to Krishna. The whole chapter is just offering prayers to Krishna. And he's saying, very nice verse, here's one I'm going to learn here. 10:14:38. How some people say they understand you, Krishna, but as far as I'm concerned, nobody can understand you. You're beyond the understanding of everybody. And he's saying that, and your ultimate opulence is that you manifest in these sweet pastimes of Vrindavan. They're even more impressive that you're omnipotent, that you're beyond me and beyond all the demigods and beyond all personalities, is that you manifest these such sweet, attractive pastimes which attract the mind. And the most fortunate personalities are Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, because you're living in their family and you're associating with them every day. And then what does Lord Brahma pray for? He says, I become bewildered by thinking of anything that could be better than taking birth as grass, creepers in Vrindavan, so I can receive the dust of the lotus feet of the Brajbasis on my head. So I become bewildered when I think of anything that could be better than that. So that becomes the perfection of Brahma's meditation, that he wants to take birth in Vrindavan, and not as a gopi or anything, or cowherd boy, just as a creeper, so he can just get the dust from the lotus feet of the Brajbasis. There's another verse which I did know, which is also very similar to this. Is a very sweet verse. It's from Raghupati Upadhyaya in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's very simple. I think it's in Sanskrit. It's very simple Sanskrit, so if you learn this verse, you can understand every word pretty much. Shritim apare smritim itare bharatam anye bhajantu bhava bitaha ahami nandam vande yasya linde param brahma. Shrutim is Vedic literature, apare. So those who are afraid of material existence, they worship the Vedas. They want to get out of material existence, they worship the Vedas. Smritim ittare. Others, they worship the smriti, which are the corollaries of the Vedic literature. So, shrutim apare, some people worship the shruti, smritim ittare. Other people, they worship the smriti. Bharatam anye, bhajantu bhava bitaha. Yeah, others, they worship the Mahabharata, being afraid of material existence. Aham inandam vande. I worship Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard Krishna is playing. So it's the same thing. Some people, they try to appreciate Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Raghupati Upadhyaya is saying, I just worship Nanda Maharaj because Krishna is playing in his courtyard. So we should understand that Krishna is supreme. Prabhupada is saying in the purport that we worship him through Bhakti Yoga, that if we worship Krishna, then everything can be achieved. Only by Krishna's mercy can we achieve perfection. There's lots of nice verses explaining that in the Bhagavad Gita also. But we should understand that, yes, Krishna is the supreme. Everybody is dependent upon him in every single way. But what is the most wonderful thing that Krishna can give us? It's not freedom from our problems. It's not fulfilling our material desires. Akama sarva kamova. There's nothing like that. It's to be, as Brahma said, to the people who are the most fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, the inhabitants of Vrindavan. That's when Krishna really gives his mercy. That's when really Krishna gives his blessings, when one can associate him in Kaloka Vrindavan. Okay, thank you for your attention. Bit of a disjointed class today. Does anybody have any comments or questions? And we can take them, and then we should finish that. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. Very Rasik orientated, very sweet. I have one question. This has been on my mind for quite some time. This is regarding the bewilderment of Brahma. So this whole section of the pastime, is it on the initial birth of the Brahma, on the initial creation of the universe? Or is it as the days are progressing? Is it that every day he forgets, every day some kind of a lila happens? So this is first question. And second question is that there's this quotation, Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. Yet there's another purport from 10th canto, chapter 14, verse 11, where Srila Prabhupada says, generally everyone's personal bodily measurement is calculated to be 7 spans of his hand. This particular universe may appear to be very gigantic body, but it's nothing but the measurement of 7 spans for Lord Brahma. So it brings kind of a contradiction statements that he couldn't trace it because it was so big, so long, he couldn't find it. Yet on the other place he said that the universe is like 7 spans, so he can see everything, through all the universal corners. So how can we reconcile these two things, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, it may be his body, but he may not be able to understand it. Like we have our body, right? Yeah, right now I'm digesting the sandesh, or right now I'm turning my, red blood, whatever they are, into, and my cells are doing this. It's like we haven't got a clue what's going on in our own body. It's not even our body; it's Krishna's body. Everything is Krishna's. Even Brahma's body is Krishna's. So it may be his body, but it's not actually his body, it's Krishna's body. If Krishna wants to give him understanding of how to perform his service, knowledge of the universe, which is, Brahma's body, and then he'll allow him to. If he doesn't, then he won't. It's all dependent on Krishna. Krishna just wants Brahma to perform this function, right? You need a temple commander. You need it clean. You need prasadam served. You don't want any mad people around. You've got to deal with the boga coming in. You've got to have these jobs to do. Lord Brahma has a job to do. So, but it's all dependent on Krishna. How would it not be dependent on Krishna? So he maybe has empowerment, or that's his body, is the universe, Lord Brahma's body. But he can only use it if Krishna allows him to, if Krishna gives him the intelligence. Or if his mentality is correct. If his mentality, like Brahma made Krishna so angry with Brahma Vimohan Leela, he said that Krishna was far angrier with Brahma than he was with Indra. Indra tried to kill all the Brajbasis, but Brahma separated him from the Brajbasis. So he wasn't with coward boy, so he's far angry with Brahma. So if his mentality is correct, then Krishna will give him everything that he needs to perform his service. But if not, then he almost died here. Is that okay? You don't look particularly happy with that.
Maybe you can touch upon the first point, the first question which I asked as well.
Yeah.
Is that bewilderment every day, or is it in the beginning of the actual creation of the universe?
I would guess that it was the creation of the universe, but you'd have to research it. Because it's the birth of Brahma, right? I would guess that, but we'd have to check, do more research to find out. I wouldn't like to say categorically. Yes, you have to shake up around.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for your class. You made that point where you gave us like a guiding kit of how to understand whether we are in Maya or whether we are actually in devotional service. And it was that, having an awareness of, is this related to Krishna?
Or do I see it in relationship to Krishna?
Yeah, do I see it in relationship to Krishna, to the Lord? My question is having that vision of seeing it connected to the Lord enough, or does it also have to translate into action? And the reason why I'm asking this is because at times we're aware or we're conscious that certain activities that we're doing are not Krishna conscious, or are not getting us closer to Krishna. But we have a full pictorial understanding of what it is that we're getting ourselves into. And so if we have that awareness, does that count as us being in Maya? If we know, or is Maya that illusion that kind of traps us so that we think that we're doing the right thing or in the right circumstances, yet it's actually dragging us down? I just wanted to, if you could elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, there's so many different instances, right? I can't say yes. It's like, in some circumstances you can't engage everything in Krishna's service, but you can see it in relationship to Krishna, right? You can't go home to your parents and say, okay, we're going to shave up today, everybody. We're going to Mangalarti tomorrow. What are you all in Maya? Going to chuck the TV out the window. It's like you can't engage it in Krishna's service, but you can see that they're Krishna's servants, and you're talking about, I don't know, whatever's going on just to make them happy. And you're thinking, when can I sit down and read Bhagavatam or go back to the temple? So you may not be able to engage that, but you can see it. But then another situation, it's like You might, I don't know, be breaking the 4 regulative principles and be thinking about Krishna. That's not okay, you know. So you according to the situation, then you may not be able to engage it. Maybe you can just remember Krishna, but it shouldn't be an excuse for, you know, engaging what we can as well. But it depends on the individual circumstance, and that's why it's important. Also, we have guidance. We have a mentor, somebody, you know, somebody who we can talk to, and you know, should I do this or should I do that? You know, should I get that job as opposed to working for the temple, or you know, is it a good move or is it not? You know, there's lots of variegated factors in life to different things.
Yeah. Maybe also just on that aspect of illusion itself, because when we say illusion, it's that which it isn't. We misconceive it. But if you're aware of that illusion, or you're aware of what you're getting yourself into, are you still in illusion? That's, I think, the...
There is no illusion. It's just us, you know, it's our misconception. Everything is Krishna, so it's just our problem in our head, you know. So if we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're going to be in more illusion, that's not a good idea. And we should play it safe, you know. Time is very short. There's 2 devotees that I know just left their bodies. Time is very short, you know. We should just be Krishna conscious. Bhaktivedanta Manor said, you should always follow the 4 regulative principles and chant your 16 rounds. Better die doing that than to not do that. Even if better die, you know, do that. You know, you don't know what bus is gonna hit you when you walk around the corner. You know, like don't put yourself in a situation where you're risking taking birth again in this material world. We should get out of here immediately, as soon as possible. If it's like dicey, you know, is this going to be good for my Krishna consciousness or not? Then maybe better, or maybe better not. But it's good to get guidance. And these are specific things, you know. It's not, you have to, if you want to answer to a specific thing, you have to ask a specific question. You can't, like, it's too general, I think. Yeah. Okay, we should finish here because I've got to go to the garden and have breakfast. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai.
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I think it was. Krishna inspired me to say it.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.